Tonight on NAIT NewsWatch.
The Get Out to Vote campaign is encouraging students to have a voice in the upcoming provincial election.
We've been running it since about October of this year on the ground, connecting with students.
NAIT is working with the city to accommodate LRT users as the campus station sets to close.
First steps first, and that is that we need to try and make sure that the routes that are currently in place, the number 8 and number 9, are timed up properly.
A Strathcona bakery is voicing concern about potholes that are restricting access for their customers.
Full of potholes that have been repaired over time, and it's affected the drainage, so the water pools until it evaporates instead of draining like it should.
NewsWatch starts now.
Good evening. With Election Day less than 3 weeks away, it's not just political parties campaigning for your vote.
Some university students are also making noise, encouraging their peers to head to the polls on April 16th. Our reporter Noah Ortiz joins us live with more on that story. Noah?
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Margie. The campaign is called Get Out the Vote. Their main targets are, well, us, college students. And their message is simple. If you're concerned about government decisions impacting your life and you want to make your voice heard, then go and vote.
Yes, voting is important. Please vote.
Stephen Rates is making his voice heard as he runs around the U of A campus, hoping his shirtless performance will leave a lasting memory. He's part of the Get Out the Vote campaign, spreading the message that young people need to vote.
This has pretty much been and will end up being more than a year-long effort to support students getting out and voting both provincially and federally this year. They face additional challenges that not everybody else faces with busy schedules, so it's important that we provide them with a little bit extra assistance along the way.
Rates and his team are fanning out across campus and also heading to a platform where they know students live: social media.
Did you know that you can go to the Elections Alberta website and figure out where your riding is?
I didn't, now I know.
Stats from the last provincial election show that only 27% of Albertans aged 18 to 24 voted, making that age group the lowest ranked in voter turnout. U of A student Lauren Bernikevich says she will not be part of the apathy and is looking forward to having her voice heard on April 16th.
Just everything that's changing, like in our current political climate, it's really important for young people to have a say. Like this stuff, it affects us, it affects tuition, it'll affect our future, it'll affect years down the line. Like we see it even like with the Trump and Obama thing that like government affects years later.
Bernikevich has signed the Get Out the Vote pledge, ensuring she gets reminders for Election Day. Rates and his team say that's the key, making the message resonate using whatever means necessary.
So we're hoping in the last few weeks of the campaign to ramp that up a little more so we can kind of get a collective push from students to be getting out and voting. Hell yeah, vote on April 16th. You're voting on April 16th, maybe even earlier.
Now, while elections are not decided by one vote very often, they can be won by a margin of a couple of hundred votes. So the more students this campaign reaches out to, the more likely you are to have an impact on your government, which is exactly the point of Get Out the Vote.
Noah, how many pledges have been signed because of this campaign?
Well, Margie, when I spoke with Stephen on Tuesday, he mentioned that he has received over 4,000 pledges to vote from students and their friends and families. That number is most likely going to increase by the time Election Day comes on April 16th. By how much, that's not, we can't tell right now, but that number, with the number of pledges already, that number could be doubled, maybe even tripled by that time.
And Noah, where and how can people vote in the upcoming election?
So Josh, for those who want to register to vote, they can go to elections.ab.ca, where they can get information on electoral boundaries, volunteer opportunities, and whether or not they are eligible to vote. There will also be advanced poll stations all across Alberta, including university campuses such as the U of A and our very own NAIT from April 9th to the 13th. All they have to do is provide an authorized form of identification that states their name and residential address so that they can determine the electoral division.
Thanks, Noah. It's Noah Ortiz reporting live from our news center tonight. We want to know what you think about the election.
In partnership with our sister campus publication, the NAIT Nugget, we will be polling viewers and readers on our question of the week. This week's poll question is, are you planning on voting in the upcoming election? Just go on the NAIT NewsWatch or the NAIT Nugget Facebook pages and check out the answer you agree with the most. And don't forget to like the page to be in the running for a pair of tickets to the Cineplex on April 1st. Voters will now have a new option when casting a ballot in the upcoming election. The new Vote Anywhere campaign means Albertans can now cast a ballot anywhere in the province on advanced polling days. This, unlike previous elections where Albertans could only vote within their designated riding. The Vote Anywhere option will take place at all stations, but will only be available on advanced polling days from April 9th to 13th. Elections Alberta does anticipate the new method will increase voter turnout. However, the process of counting these new votes will likely leave Albertans waiting for results.
We are not starting this count until 1 p.m. the following day. You are guaranteed not to have results from any Vote Anywhere ballots on election night. It will come days later.
Unlike the regular hand-counted ballots from Election Day, the Vote Anywhere ballots will be counted in a different way, using a tabulator. The machine takes a digital scan of the ballot and tracks which party was voted for.
The city is asking NAIT staff and students to be patient after news that trains will not run to NAIT for 4 months.
We will suspend LRT service to NAIT station since it cannot accommodate 5-car trains.
Transit officials say service to the NAIT station will be suspended due to system-wide maintenance. The city says the needed TLC for LRT project will include reconstructive work on tunnels and stations. During the maintenance, the city will use 5-car trains, which NAIT cannot accommodate. The LRT's last stop will be at Kingsway Royal Ag Station. Jason Roth says hopes that the city makes changes to cater more to the needs of students.
We need to try and make sure that the routes that are currently in place, the number 8 and the number 9, are timed up properly at Kingsway Royal Alex Station. What we'd also like to see is an express route between NAIT and downtown.
The shutdown runs from April 28th to August 30th. Central Station will also close as the city upgrades lighting and ceiling tiles.
You're watching NAIT NewsWatch, the next generation of news.
People can now purchase townhomes and become the first residents in the new Blatchford Central community.
And it's a great pleasure that I get to, on behalf of the Blatchford redevelopment team, announce our first builders.
Councillor Bev Eslinger announced the first builders for the Blatchford land. Representatives from the chosen companies presented information about the plans they have for the area. Tegan Martin Drysdale, president of Red Brick, aims to build energy-efficient buildings that most people can afford.
Pragmatic, sustainable Canadian design. That's the type of housing that we build. So that's the lens that we look at all of our decisions through. And we think that we've started, 1,480 square feet provides a price point that allows you to enter the market and live in a brand new community in the heart of downtown.
The announced builders are part of the stage 1 of the building process. Additional builders are being selected for the next phase of the Blatchford land development.
The owner of a bakery just off White Avenue is growing tired of a pothole problem outside his business.
I'm a patient guy. I just want to see a plan and I just want to hear what it is.
This back alley leads to Jeff Noctegal's bakery. Since he opened up shop, Noctegal says the potholes have been a problem and aren't getting any better. After receiving a permit to build the rear-facing shop 2 years ago, Noctegal had confidence the city would repair the pothole-filled alley. But he says the efforts put forth by the city so far haven't solved the problem, as water continues to pool.
The biggest problem with that is preventing access for our customers with mobility issues. We have a few regular customers in motorized wheelchairs who can't get here when the alley's in terrible condition.
Noctegal says despite the ongoing obstruction, the bakery will continue to stay open.
A reminder from the Edmonton Fire Department tonight about safe grilling. This after an apartment fire last week that was started from a barbecue. Officials say that spring comes outdoor grilling, and residents of apartments need to be especially careful when cooking outside.
Well, barbecue fires, as soon as you start them after the winter, you want to make sure the connections are all tight and maybe change out your propane bottle because you don't want to use a propane bottle that's been sitting there all winter.
Station Captain Bob Murray also says people living in apartments should consider where grills are being placed on the balcony and look out for flare-ups.
Spring break is usually a time spent playing video games and sleeping in, but for 40 high school students from across the city, it was spent learning what it takes to be a police officer.
Let's go, finish strong! Let's go, guys!
Recruits were put to the test this week at Emile Lazure High School as part of the 5th annual Youth Recruit Academy. As part of the training, youth experience what it means to be a police officer, both physically and mentally.
They come in sometimes hesitant, sometimes scared, and sometimes they get a little bit afraid of PT. But then with us pushing them and encouraging to go past that wall, they really kind of start to see what they can do.
with the experiences I've had with the constables and my squad, it's one of the greatest things I've ever done. I've known people at my high school for 3 years, but with these people, I've known them for 4 days, and I felt like I got closer to them than some of the kids at my high school.
The academy originated in 2016 with 30 recruits in a small trailer and has now expanded to having nearly 200 applicants each year.
Coming up after the break, eSports at NAIT.
How the first eSports tournament rolled out here on campus.
An opportunity to get a little bit of the landscape of what we're seeing here in terms of the engagement of the NAIT students, and then also the community involvement as well.
Coming up in sports, the NAIT Dukes and McEwen Griffins battled out in the ACAC final, as well the Oil Kings take on the Medicine Hat Tigers in WHL playoffs. All that and more coming up in sports.
Coming up in weather, I'm going to tell you if this golfing weather will continue. And on this upcoming Earth Day this Saturday, maybe you can get out and hit some balls too.
So, the UK has just instituted the toughest ban on ivory trade Europe has ever seen. Put this inside a button push.
It's 1:59. My ears are bleeding. Underwear required over 40 stitches to her face. Good afternoon, it's 2 o'clock. I'm Jenna Winterburn with your NR92 News Update. You're listening to NR92.
You know, Josh, the Edmonton weather really is unpredictable, and I'm really getting tired of it.
It was warm for a bit there, starting to get cold again. I had an itch, I wanted to go golfing, but here's hoping the weather's going to warm up a little bit more for us. I know Evan's got more on that as he brings us our weather.
Thanks, guys. You know, I wish I could tell you that the weather was getting a lot warmer. Unfortunately, it does not look like it will. We'll start it off in Calgary. Calgary, we got a high of +8, so still not bad. However, a low of -2, not the greatest. It will be sunny with a little bit of clouds coming in late Saturday night. Now over to the west, we find Jasper looking more than beautiful. Look at that. +10 and a +1 for the low. They'll be getting a little bit of snow later on through the week, so still great time to go skiing. Now up north, Fort McMurray, usually the coldest place in our province. And unfortunately, it still is looking like it will be pretty chilly. -7 for the low, +4 for the high. And they're looking to get a little bit of snow and rain mixture, so those roads could be quite slick. Now to our beautiful hometown of Edmonton. We're looking at a +6, -5. So not quite as warm as we've had in the last while. However, not too bad. It's looking right around the average. And now we will go to the averages. As in Edmonton, it is typically +7, -3 around this time of year. So, you know, we're right in there. We're not quite as warm as the high, as that was in 2010, +15. Man, I would kill for that. But we're not quite as bad as the low, -18. So, Josh, looks like you can still get out, possibly go golfing, my man. That's all I have for you. Back to you guys.
NewsWatch Weather is brought to you by NR92, the station for the students.
The word esports might not be familiar to you, but for a group of gamers at NAIT, it's their passion.
NAIT hosted its first ever eSports tournament, welcoming over hundreds of people from all over the city. Daniel Baradil brings us more.
NAIT hosted its first ever esports tournament this past weekend. As students and members of the public descended on the HP Center Saturday, they played games such as the popular Counter-Strike Global Offensive, League of Legends, and joined together in a 64-player Super Smash Bros. Ultimate tournament.
I hate you so much. I love Yoshi. I hate you. I hate you too.
With all the excitement, Organizers are glad that the event met their expectations.
It's something that it's hard to try and scale for your first event, but with the number of people that came out for the Smash tournament and CS and the League of Legends, we're very happy with how it's running, and it took a minute to get it started off, but after that it's been smooth sailing, so it seems like everybody's really enjoying themselves, and that's the most important part.
Those that attended the event could also enter themselves into a draw for different prizes. Event organizers have also mentioned that the next step forward for these tournaments would be to run them every semester before exams. The goal is to take the stress off students before their midterms or finals.
We like this timing, and it's an opportunity to give students a break before the final exam season, not too close, but gives them a chance to kind of relieve some stress and do some alternative activities.
There were also multiple Xbox One consoles set up at the entrance for those that wanted to take a break from the crowds and play some games on their own. Riley Shelton had his hands full competing, but also planning for the next tournament.
But we are willing to expand into other games. When we did our advertising, we heard a lot of people saying other games like Rainbow Six Siege, Dota, Overwatch. Those are some of the popular games that we want to do next time.
Over 100 students, staff, and members of the public have taken part in NAIT's first ever eSports tournament. Organizers have said they want to make the eSports community even bigger at NAIT this coming fall. For NAIT NewsWatch, I'm Daniel Berdo.
You know, Josh, I love watching the Oil Kings, and I hope they continue with the role they've been on.
Back in action tonight, Game 5 down at Rogers Place. But for the Ooks, they're facing MacEwan for the third year in a row in the ACAC Championship. And now I know Jordan Clark's got more on that for us. Jordan?
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Margie. As you mentioned, this is the third year in a row the ACAC battle has been between the Ooks and Griffins, with the Griffins taking Game 1. All eyes were on the downtown arena for Game 2 of this heated rivalry. Starting off in the second period here, Shane Frazier would set up Dylan Stewart, who would be stopped, but it would be Matt McNeil slipping one past Dag for the 1-0 lead for the Ooks. A little later, it would be, guess who, McNeil again, burying his second of the game to give the Ooks a 2-0 lead. Less than a minute later, it would be Carson Beers who would wait, and fire one past Dag to give the Ooks a 3-0 lead. A little later, it would be Shane Frazier with the tip over the Dag's glove to give the Ooks a 4-0 lead. Late in the second period here, it would be Garen Magnus who would slip one through Jensen to get the Griffins on the board at 4-1. A minute later, it would be Brett Yaw with the shot blocked, but it would be Austin Yaremchuk picking up the scraps, and he would score to bring the Griffins a little closer, 4-2 Ooks after 40. Third period here, Griffins on the power play, and Ryan Baskerville will have a tip of his own to make this a one-goal game. 3 minutes later, Nicholas Correll would pick up the loose puck in the slot and would roof it over Jensen to tie this thing up at 4. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we would need a little bit of overtime. And in that extra frame, the dying seconds, Jensen would make a great glove save to keep the Ooks season alive. In double overtime now, Jensen would once again stand on his head to keep the Ooks alive with a fantastic breakaway save. However, it would be all for naught as Ryan Baskerville would take the drop pass and fire it home. MacEwan with the massive comeback to claim their third straight ACAC title with a 5-4 victory over your NAIT Ooks. Baskerville was almost at a loss for words after he scored the winner.
Honestly, I blacked out. When I just tried to get it on net and I saw it snuck, I think under his blocker, but man, what a feeling. Finish my career at MacEwan, it's still speechless.
There was a touching moment at the end of the game Saturday when the Griffins honored a teammate who unexpectedly died after a game in January due to unknown medical reasons. The team rallied around the family of Nakeko Lamoth as they raised the ACAC championship. The win for the Griffins is a historic one, putting the hockey program at MacEwan in the record books. With both the men's and women's teams winning their respective ACAC championships, they are the first ever men's and women's teams from the same school to three-peat. Before their most recent titles, MacEwan only had 2 titles to their name, from the men in 2004 and the women in 2008. Men's head coach Mike Ringrose sees a success from a number of different factors.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at kind of the program as a whole, a big catalyst for us was the new arena that we got here downtown. and moving our program into that and being right on campus here. From a recruiting perspective, certainly opened a lot more doors for us, so we were able to target some higher end guys, and you know, the program has certainly flourished since then.
With only a few players expected to return next year, it'll be a challenge to make it a four-peat, though if anyone could do it, it could be the Griffins, as half the roster this year were newcomers. As for the Oil Kings, they're in a tight battle to stay alive in the playoffs. They're facing the Medicine Hat Tigers in a best-of-7 series. Game 1 took place Saturday night, which saw the Tigers take it by a score of 2-1. Tigers goalie Matt Zogard had 49 saves in the win, as the Tigers looking to take both games at Rogers for a stranglehold in the series. Kicking things off in the first period, a 2-on-1 for the Oil Kings, as Josh Williams would feed Liam Keeler and he would bury his first of the playoffs, giving the Oil Kings a 1-0 lead, less than 3 minutes into the first. Things are all tied up now for the Oil Kings and Tigers. A nice passing play from the Tigers would set up Linus Nassen, and he would slip one through miscue to put the Tigers up 2-1 after 20. Second period of play now. The Oil Kings on the power play, and a nice no-look pass here from Trey Fix-Polanski to Connor McDonald, and he would set up Vince Lashdown for the one-timer as he would rip it past Solgaard to tie this bad boy up at 2, sending Rogers Place into an absolute frenzy. Late in the second here, Tigers on the power play. Ryan Javine would send a shot towards the net, and a mad scramble would ensue. That puck would be eventually poked home by former Oil King Brett Kemp, giving the Tigers a 3-2 lead heading into the third period. In that third period, Andrew Fighton would hold the puck in, setting up Carter Souch as he would go top shelf, tying it up at 3, and again, once again, sending Rogers Place absolutely crazy. Back and forth for most of the third, however, late in the third, Quentin Benjaville would walk in and just rip it blocker side on Solgaard. And ladies and gentlemen, that would end up being your game winner, as the Oil Kings would take this one by a score of 4-3. Oil Kings head coach Brad Lauer says after the game, it's always a challenge when playing the Tigers.
One thing we learned for this year playing against them is that you know, they're going to be tight games. I think we had 2 go to overtime and 3 or 4 were 1-goal games. And
Game 3 saw the Tigers blow out the Oil Kings by a score of 5-0, giving them a 2-1 series lead. Game 4, however, saw a completely different story. The Oil Kings took it by a score of 5-1, evening the series up at 2 games apiece. Game 5 goes tonight at Rogers Place. Men and women representing 68 countries are on the pitch at Edmonton, battling out in the 2019 Mini World Cup Tournament. The opening ceremonies took place on Tuesday, giving many the chance to show off their nation's colors. The tournament is designed to show the cultural diversity within the Edmonton Soccer Association. Teams must represent a specific country, like FIFA, in order to participate in the tournament. While it may not be as big as the actual World Cup, things still get pretty heated down the stretch.
It's a really big deal for the people who are involved in competing in this tournament. This is really a big deal. They look forward to this every year. And as you get down to the finals, where people are competing for medals, it is really intense, really intense.
The tournament runs until April 6th at both the South and North indoor soccer stadiums. The Edmonton Stingers' inaugural season is just around the corner. First order of business, though, draft day. That was the Stingers cheerleaders getting fans ready at the Stingers draft party this past weekend at the Polar Brewing Company. The draft process is a little confusing. The first 4 rounds of the draft is the regional section where teams have to pick players from Canada. Rounds 5 through 12, teams can select players from anywhere in the world. And rounds 13 and 14 include a cool university sports component.
And then there's a U-Sport component as well. So we have a U-Sport draft where 2 players will come and be development players with the Edmonton Stingers. They won't necessarily play games. They could, but they're here to develop and train with a professional team in a professional environment and build that up.
The Stingers had the 2nd overall pick in the draft as they took Mamadou Gueye, who last played for the Sudbury Five, where he averaged 12.5 points per game. The Stinger season kicks off on May 10th against the Niagara River Lions. Now let's take a look at what else made news this week in sports. Play ball. Opening day for the MLB was yesterday. Some notable games were the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Detroit Tigers and the defending World Series champion Boston Red Sox facing the Seattle Mariners. Only 161 games to go, boys. New England Patriots tight end Rob Gronkowski announced his retirement from the NFL on Sunday. He leaves the league holding 16 records, including most touchdowns by a tight end in a season. Now, this will effectively end the Patriots dynasty. Not really, though. They'll probably win the Super Bowl again next season. The push is on to add 4 new sports to the Olympics in 2024. They are skateboarding, surfing, sport climbing, and breakdancing. The Olympic Committee will decide in 2020 if they will make the cuts.
You know, I don't really follow NAIT hockey, but it's too bad they lost to McEwen 3 times in a row.
Definitely a tough pill to swallow, but for the Oil Kings playing Game 5 tonight at Rogers Place. And Jordan, you mentioned you're going to the game tonight. One player you're going to watch, who's it going to be?
Well, I think it has to be Trey Fix-Wolanski. I mean, he only has a few points in the playoffs so far. It's only a matter of time before a player of his caliber can actually find the back of the net.
Yeah, here's hoping him and the rest of the Oil Kings can get one past Mad Sogard tonight. Thanks, Jordan.
Coming up after the break, we go to Rock Jungle to climb some boulder walls.
How Rock Jungle Boulders is raising money for injured birds of prey by getting the community involved.
We've had people who've reached out and said, hey, we really like what you're doing. How can we get involved?
In entertainment, I'm here at West Edmonton Mall at the comic strip where I'm about to watch Edmonton versus Calgary in the row stop. Plus, we take a look at a Cape Crusaders 80th birthday coming up. And we take a look at a local wrestling event that happened here at NAIT. More on that coming up.
NR92 is your destination for music and news.
For NAIT news and insights to accelerate your life. NR92.com, the station for the students.
Climbing for a cause. Rock Jungle Boulders is taking charity to new heights.
We visited the rock climbing place to donate and try out the facility, and it's definitely not as easy as it looks.
This looks hard. This is a hard one?
This is
the easiest one? Are you kidding me?
This is going to be a lot of fun.
Rock Jungle Boulders host their weekly charity climb to raise funding for the charity of the month. As beginners, it was quite difficult. We learned some are naturals and some are definitely not. For this March, RJ Boulders is partnering with Alberta Society for the Injured Birds of Prey. The fundraising aims to make it more accessible for people to donate to local organizations.
Charity Climb is all about just organizations that we care for, allowing them to come in here, having people climb, and then them donating money to them. So it's a really easy way for people to kind of get involved in the community and have fun and climb.
It truly is a fun and a unique way of donating money. Not only will a person feel pride when conquering a boulder wall, but will also feel good that their admission fee is going to a good cause. The fundraiser happens every Thursday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. with a minimum donation of $5.
Since you know spring is coming, I really want to be in the loop with everything happening around the city.
Well, I think Braden got to check out some pretty sweet stuff this week. Went down to the comic strip, got a little Calgary versus Edmonton battle, and I know he got to check out some pretty awesome amateur wrestling here in Edmonton. Braden, what do you got for us?
Thanks, Margie. Thanks, Josh. And yes, I did get to start over at the PWA to watch some amateur wrestling here at the NAIT Gymnasium. So, if you love watching topless, sweaty men wrestle as much as I do, then boy, do I have an event for you. The PWA's 18th anniversary show kicked off at NAIT's gym. Wrestlers from all over the country flew down and beat up the competition for a chance of taking home one of the belts. The winner of the Triple Threat event were charismatic wrestlers from Saskatchewan, who didn't mince words about this year's event.
No, it's overwhelmingly negative, just the way we like it. We don't want these stupid fans to like us.
Because they're disgusting trailer trash and we call them what they are.
They're losers.
If you want to get in on the action, not to worry, as their next show takes place down in Calgary tomorrow. The battle for Alberta has been going on longer than I can remember. Oilers versus the Flames, Eskimos against the Stampeders, and now our comedians will join in on that battle.
I don't want to hear no, oh, that was too mean. No, that's the right temperature.
This is the second roast battle as Calgary won the first event back in their home court. The captains for the cities bring down their best comedians and face off one-on-one, with the winner being determined by the audience cheering at the end. For the comedian that loses, unfortunately, this doesn't mean your ride is over, as the opposing captain will roast you on stage in front of the packed crowd. Brett Forte, the team captain for Calgary, enjoys that he still has a place to share what may be considered risky comedy.
There is still a market for those dirty, those edgy jokes that push the line, walk the line, and sometimes go right over the line. And this happens to be one of the few places where that fabled free speech actually still exists. So it's quite fun.
Calgary did end up winning the roast-off, but let's give it to them, because I don't expect them to bring home another Stanley Cup. A special shout out to my favorite DC character, Batman, as the old comic book character turns 80. I'm sure his utility belt holds nothing but hard candy now. Batman celebrates 80 years since the first detective comic. With his birthday launches Batman Detective number 1000. This issue is different from other comics as various writers from the past 80 years tell short stories that any Batman fan could enjoy. When speaking to one of the employees at Happy Harbor Comics, he says one of the big reasons Batman can last for 8 decades is because of the variety of stories for all ages.
And Batman becomes a wonderful character for that type of interaction because no matter what your age range, we can find a book that's appropriate and actually has great content.
Burke also says to expect the comic to pick up in value in the coming years, as issue 27 of the same series sold for over $1 million. I have to admit, there are some days where I miss my pet goldfish. If only there was a way I could bring them back. Well, maybe there is with this latest horror movie, Pet Sematary.
So many trees. It's beautiful, right?
It's definitely not Boston.
Based on the Stephen King novel, Pet Sematary follows Dr. Lewis Creed and his family after they move from Boston to rural Maine. The family discovers a mysterious graveyard by their house, shrouded by disturbing rumors of its incredible power. After tragedy strikes the Creed family, they soon find out that the incredible power is something terrifyingly evil.
Sometimes dead is better.
Sorry to say, Goldie, but maybe I'll wait for the next option. Will the family be able to survive the haunted forest, or will they just become another victim? Pet Sematary is sure to knock off your socks, but maybe bring something to hold on to. Pet Sematary comes out next Friday on April 5th. If you want to experience the fear yourself, you can with NAIT NewsWatch. To enter, all you have to do is enter the hashtag #PetCemetery at NAIT NewsWatch to win this spooky swag, along with 2 tickets to the new movie, Evil Spirits Included. Well, that's all I have for you in entertainment. Back to you, Josh and Margie.
Thanks, Braden. That has been your look on this week's NAIT NewsWatch.
Thank you so much for watching, and have a great weekend.